During that time when we heard of a Chinese wayang only, wow, that was our main entertainment.
My dad gave me my first car in 1965. Motorsport at that time was mostly a white man's game. He said, you will not race because it is very dangerous.
50年代的巴士是单层的，跑跑就跳上去了，拉住那个手扶就上去了。
Most of us will be hanging on the bus now. It's like flying.
The time you can have your coffee 10 cents, char kway teow also 30 cents, 40 cents.
Because that was Singapore at that time. It's like everything goes free enterprise.
There was once a rain for a few days at a stretch, you know. The whole place was really very messy. Everywhere was flooded and our vegetables died because of the flood water. And then the water rose up to our house with all the dead pigs and chickens, all the centipedes, ants and whatever float on those flotsam, and they went into the house. Wow, it was terrible. The smell was horrible. We put whatever in the lower rung of the cupboard to the uppermost rung. And then finally, you know what happened? The cupboard turned buoyant, floating, and the whole cupboard with its content came crashing down onto the water. Everything was gone. And then when the flood subsided, well, you really had a hard time trying to clear all those dirt and mud. My parents were farmers. We reared pigs, chicken, ducks, fishes, plant vegetables, fruit trees, and we helped the parents in the farm. I was born in 1946 in Bedok, called Tanah Merah Kecil. Tanah Merah Kecil at that time was hilly Malay kampong.
Singapore flat terrain plus poor drainage systems in those days meant that severe flooding, especially during the monsoon seasons. Most of the dwellings were kampong, wooden shacks. They really got marooned there, cannot go out, buy food and so on. If you look at the early pictures, you can almost tell which were our flood-prone areas. The houses all on stilts. Geylang Serai, Kembangan, Eunos, all in stilts. We live in a landed property. During heavy rain, the water would actually come in and flood the whole garden. The garden was like a lake. You actually see sewer rats driven out of their nests. They're underground. Huge rats, you know. What was transportation like? It was paralyzed by floods because the buses are not made to travel through water. Many of them stalled.
起頭我係載我家機嘅細佬哥啦，咁我就上邊俾一塊板晾住上邊，載幾個，呢度又載幾個，窿咗係男人載係我一個女人嘅咩？浸水嘅時候，我嗰陣時載學生啊，周圍水浸喎，書館都水浸喎，浸到膝頭哥呢度啊，咁咧細佬哥點樣行？我孭住佢出孭佢入咯，孭一個好一個。 咪攞一架以前嗰啲垃圾車啊，細佬哥喺入邊拉架車出嚟，再翻屋企。
以前的人就是没有事做，这种吃饱饭就走几条路都可以走，除非认识那个检票员。 Hello， 安哥，龙邦大顺风车啦，我就跳上去，以前没有门的嘛，就以前的检票员都是吊在车门上，你看你小姐，他会拉你把上车。
50年代的巴士是单层的，一个楼梯上去的，方便人家上下车咯。我们那时的人可以跳的， 车来的时候，他放慢，我们就跳车上去了，跑就跳上去哦，拉住那个手扶就上去了。我们那时候的老人家是很快的，手脚很敏捷，一看到车来就怕上没有，就是跳下去了。他比我们还厉害哦。那时候没有像现在的时候一直跌倒了，不会的。
All of us get in, the bus is full. So there is no way we can go inside and sit. So most of us will be hanging on the bus, one hand holding the frame and one hand holding my friends, and one leg on the bus steps and one leg hanging outside. It's like a flying. And we like the sensation of flying in the air. So when the first bus stop comes, all of us will get down and then we'll walk away.
In the 50s, 60s, and the 70s, there was one big bus company, British-owned, called Singapore Traction Company, STC for short. Now, STC services covered pretty much the whole urban part of Singapore. Beyond the urban areas, you had about, I think, 10 to 12 Chinese-owned bus companies. So they covered the rural areas. The main one operating was, of course, STC, and they were well run. If you talk about the outlying areas, the Chinese bus companies, I think you see a lot of maximization of profits there. So as a result of which, they will run their buses to the very maximum. So that's where you will find breakdowns, tire punctures. Punctuality was never a feature.
The buses during peak hours was very, very crowded. And then the bus would just speed along. Why speeding? Because the bus conductors and drivers wanted to make an extra trip. Because every trip they run, they make extra money. These bus drivers very impatient. They wanted to make a quick buck, so at the expense of the safety of passengers. Before the passenger could even alight, the bus was starting to move off and the passenger could jump down.
A typical bus service would have the driver, of course. There must be a conductor. So the conductor's job is to sell tickets. He'll come up to you and ask you, where do you want to go? Based on what you told him, he'll pull out a 30-cent ticket and actually punch it and give it to you.
Our job is mainly to check on the ticket that issued to us, repair the ticket when the ticket is only correct.
那时候我是27岁了，才做检票员。有人上来就悄悄拿钱检票给他们咯，5分1毛这样检咯，最高好像是5毛而已。上来就在检动，人家有些坐上去，你要检票就悄悄一下，嘎多，现在嘎多就一直走咯，整个车走到完咯。有些好像扳机小螺丝一样，不要给钱嘛，你跟他敲他就会给你。
We used to joke that on a rainy day we couldn't close the windows. On a hot day we couldn't bring it down. So on a rainy day the bus was really wet and you couldn't sit down because water came through. And there's some pickpockets. If you're not careful, you'll be pickpocketed. And then low traffic, no street lights, and the bus stops were just one pole. And if you miss one bus, you have to wait a long time. And sometimes the bus would not even stop. So you had to go very early, but it was not very pleasant.
My most memorable ride was when I had a fish bone stuck in my throat. We couldn't get it out. I was at home and we said, goodness, we have to take you to hospital. So we waited for a bus. I was terrified because I had this bone stuck in my throat. But we finally made it to General Hospital. It was useless too. A male nurse had these huge pliers and was trying to put it into my throat, so it failed. Then we had to take that same ride home. But thankfully, when we reached home, I was given some water to drink. Then it just went off. For me, that ride to SGH was probably the longest.
Bà工好多，你睇到都驚啊！我都唔知佢做咩罷工，我唔知。嗰陣時好亂，我家機又唔識字，我又唔知道。但係我載學生，佢唔俾我載。 閒，佢冇車行啊，佢冇法子翻。我同佢，我夾硬咧，我再嚟，我再你打我都冇變啊！我送人哋啲細路哥，唔俾再收尾，我咪同啲工人嗰啲家長講咯，唔俾我載，我唔敢載你啲細路哥。有咩事幹嗰陣時，我沙啦，佢家長大冇法子啊！
Trishaws were basically for short distance, and it was very popular in some of the market areas. Like my mother used to take the trishaw to go to market and then come back with it. The guy probably didn't bother about traffic. He took his own pace, and sometimes he went against the one-way flow, and the others just gave way. And they were usually old people, and the fares were about less than $1, I think.
Trishaw rider, very, very cooperative, help to load the goods and then unload the goods. You can always entrust a trishaw rider, school children, and then brought them back to the house safely. Trishaw was really a very good means of transport for especially those who are old, those who are very young.
After it's raining, they have to cover everything. Cover, and then you cannot see anything. No window. Must peep, peep, peep like that lah. Open a bit, and then peep, peep, peep like that lah.
There are the shorter trips to visit aunts and aunties, and that's when we would hire the trishaw rider. And he would be standing just outside our lane. 5 of us would pile into the trishaw and then move on to auntie's place in Khun Seng Road. The trishaw rider is like a pillar of our society for transportation. They are so humble, and some of them you form close relationships because they are always your go-to becak rider who will take children to schools, the ladies to market.
If you talk about providing transport, yes, they did a very great service for short distance journeys. Certain people we have never really given the rickshaw pullers. I don't think we have really given them that type of recognition.
In the 60s, when I was growing up in Katong, we had a whole parade of street vendors came by bicycle, trishaws. They are rigged with their mobile kitchens where they will fry your mee goreng. It's wonderful because you don't have to go anywhere. They come to you.
Last time good hawker food, they push to your door. He push a cart. Like that. Then you buy, that's it. And then at night got sell bao, ride the bicycle. You don't need to go outside.
Mobile hawkers, very common because those days, those who could not get a job, they turned to hawking. They cook food at home and then ask the sons or daughters to carry around to kampong to sell with a basket, just go around singing and selling, And then for others would put up a makeshift cart they make themselves. And then after that, they put in a stove and start selling whatever they are good in. If they earn a little bit more money, they will get a good tricycle and then put those things on the tricycle and start selling.
In the 60s, when I was growing up in Katong, we had a whole parade of street vendors, and they came in all forms of transportation. The kacang putih man who carried his sling bag, and he had wafers and peanuts that you can buy. And then you had the tikam. You put a ball bearing and it goes, and if it lands in a hole with a number, you might get another piece of pink wafer. Then you have the men on the bicycles who would have his wonderful tin with different compartments, suji biscuits, curry puffs or muruku. Then he would call up curry pop. No, he has his own calls. And you would just run out because you want to get his sweet buns. Most of them came by bicycle, Trishaws, that they are rigged with open area in the front. And so they have their kitchens, cutlery, crockery installed in the front. These are the mobile kitchens where they will fry your mee goreng. You can have an extra egg from the house. He will add it on. You can bring your own plates. You pay him how many cents, and then you have freshly cooked mee goreng. It's wonderful because you don't have to go anywhere. They come to you. And it's also cheap. Good food, authentic food, or this bai selling milk. Goodness, he brought a cow along to our lane and he will milk the cow in front of you. Would you ever have that? Never, right? It's so wild. I relish that memory because you don't get those anymore. It's all so homogenized and so sterilized nowadays. We grew up with something that our grandchildren will never experience because that was Singapore at that time. It's like everything goes free enterprise.
The time you can have your coffee and all that 10 cents. So cheap. And then your char kway teow also all 30 cents, 40 cents.
Potong kuih 5 sen harganya. Itu yang paling murah. Yang paling mahal saya rasa tak sampai 50 sen.
Some would get runners with a piece of wooden stick and a board and start knocking. Say, oh, I'm selling noodle. A knocking tune. Tock, tock, tock. Tick, tock, tick, tock, tick, tock. Specific knocker. So some will knock a different tune and then you say, hey, this belongs to that hawker. He sell very good noodles. And then another person will knock a different tune and say, hey, this not bad also. But they were not very hygienic because the bowls and all that need to be washed. There's hardly any water around. So they had to just get a pail of water early in the morning and put on the tricycle or hang on the tricycle side. And with that pail of water from the morning, they use it until late in the evening. So whenever people have finished eating, they just dip the bowl in the water and then start serving already. Then at the end of the day, the water becomes like the soup of the noodle. So you see, so unhygienic. That's why the government has stepped in.
From mid to late 70s, in one sweep, they took them out of the road because they made it illegal to hawk. And then they built all these food centers. They got businesses to open their own food courts.
我最记得是小时候我跟我外婆住，走路去到7英里那边那个叫美食街那边，你看那个街戏，等他敲锣很紧张了，我们就每个走出，集中在这拼命在看他表演，有打架什么的，锣鼓声就很激烈的时候啊，我们就每个冲出来看。听不懂、看不懂的啦，小孩子是凑热闹的，就是唯一的娱乐就是也没有讲去到哪里不方便嘛，而且也是穷，你想去看一场电影，没有这样方便。
What we had was the celebration at the nearby temples, the birthday of the temple god. Twice a year, there was this Chinese wayang going on. During that time, when we heard of a Chinese wayang, only wow, there was our main entertainment, I should say. When there was a wayang, the front of the wayang stage was so crowded with people, you can hardly walk through. Entertaining is because the actors are all well trained in art of fighting. I could jump from the table down to the stage, and they did it skillfully. When they fought, they used their knives and sword, and they really hit hard. They are really good actors.
后来我做大戏第一天就是在豪华世界登台，做1个月，然后我们就去庙里做戏，哪一间庙要做戏，就请我们去3天5天，都是做武生多，好像山寨王啊、楚霸王哇这些我也喜欢做些孙悟空啊。 我会武打，我每天早上5点半就起来学武打到10点，做给神看啊。其实我们人在看啊，神有看没有看我不知道。好像我们拜神啊，拜拜的是我们自己吃，神有没有吃我们也不知道。
The best years of my life would be around 51, 52. My mom would take a taxi to what we call Happy World, which was actually later known as Gay World. They are amusement parks. She would bring me to the wayang, Chinese opera, a big show. She'd be there almost every night. I was only about 5 years old then. I would run to the rear and watch all those artists. They dress up, they put on their makeups. The wayang took a large area of the amusement park. On the other side, it's more for adult men. They have the Malay ronggeng. So there will be Malay woman who will be seated, and any man can buy a ticket, give her the ticket, and she will go to the little dance hall and she will dance. So you'll find a lot of adult men there, but me being a child, I wasn't allowed in, you see. There was also a dance hall, a cabaret, where the Chinese taukeis will go. You have about maybe 15 ladies there. Then the man buys the tickets. So you pay by hour. So you approach the lady and you do something like ballroom dancing. The ladies are all in high heels, cheongsams and all that.
Where did most Singaporeans shop? It was quite fascinating in that those days, the different groups of people would set up trades and merchandise and cluster them together. If we wanted shoes, we would go to Middle Road. There were a cluster of Hakka families. If you want to buy a pen, for the new term, you would go to North Bridge Road, sold by Teochew's. The pen and watch. You wanted books, then it's Bras Basah Road. Clothing in Chinatown, people went to bought cloth and went to tailors, to make their clothing. We didn't have, of course, large shopping centers. There were only 2 main ones, both British-owned. One was called Robinson's and the other called John Little's. And they were patterned after the British departmental stores for Harrods and so on. Customers invariably became the orang putih, the high salaried and high corporate positions. The locals could only go and window shop and just gawk and drool at all the goods there. I remember I was crazy about electric trains. Every Christmas there would be a big toy fair, and we were there to just gawk at it,
During the 60s, when I was a teenager and had some pocket money to venture out, going to Orchard Road was considered glamorous. You went there to just go window shopping and to get that bit of up-to-dateness of what is going on in the world, because Orchard Road was the place. Then there were the clubs that were just opening. This was late 60s, 70s, which is quite fun because Singapore was just emerging. Lots of hotels were coming up. The hotels had coffee shops. You can go in as long as you look decent. You can spend long time there. Nobody will throw you out. A lot of coffee shops were the go-to places. Places like Tivoli, which was an outdoor coffee shop. You can sit outdoors and watch the crowd go by.
High Street, on the other hand, is set up by the British. In fact, that street was named by the British and patterned after the High Street in London, which is high-end shopping, mostly clothing, mostly accessories. Again, high price. I remember getting shocked and stunned by this raincoat I saw in one of the high street shops. At that time, in the 60s, it was already about $350, a manager's salary. Cars were expensive items. Not many people were such that they could afford cars. In the 50s, the average salary of a manager was between 400 to 500 Singapore dollars. A small car, 1,200 cc's, for example, cost $5,000 thereabouts. As a result, it was the professionals, and then, of course, the taokes, the Chinese businessmen. A big car, maybe 2,000 cc's, chances are it will be chauffeur-driven. You can tell their economic status by the kind of car they drove.
My father owned a car. In those days, Austin and Morris were the most popular British. Those days, the arrangement was carpooling. That means morning, one parent would bring the children to school. 3 or 4 houses get together. Then afternoon, my father would take them back. The kids used to go in one car with one parent and come back with another parent.
The saloon car is black color. This guy we call Achek will take us to school. And he put another plank, so that means 4 of us will sit on the top and then another 4 sit at the bottom. So he carries 8 children in the back seat. Singapore in the 1950s, there are less cars. The roads are all okay because they're all made roads. When we were in the back of the car, we don't even really look out what's happening. We always, play amongst us in the car.
My relative owned an old Ford car in the 1950s. And then every morning we try to start the car. Oh, it takes a long time, the car just couldn't start. Got sound, but there's no whirring sound of the engine. So he would take a long starting rod and he push into the front hole. Then he would give a few hefty turns of the rod. After several tries, the car finally roared to life. With 2 hands, he wind the starting rod. In the 40s, 50s, and 60s, owning a car denotes that he's quite well-to-do. Very few people own cars. They had only bicycles. Those who own a car, definitely they were not selfish, I would say. The long kampong road is very rough. It's a dirt track. So these drivers, when they see a person walking along the road, he would stop his car and say, let me give a lift. Those days were very common. Even my bicycle also, I see a person walking, I would give him a lift. Having each other, having each other is very common. And those dirt winding road, during a period of heavy rainstorm, the road would be full of ruts and water. We would chip in to help to repair the road, fill in the potholes. Anybody using that pathway or whatever, I would help to chip in to repair the road.
Those days, the Malays, Chinese all look after each other. So what happened was, government wanted to encourage this kampung spirit. So it started gotong royong. Gotong royong means work together. Sunday, they will get all the villagers to go and lay the tracks. So this is one of the things I was involved. They build a road, they just do a track, and then we just put the stones, and then the public works, they want to come and do the tarring, you see. Every once a month, we will do somewhere to get the villagers to bond together and eat together and so on. It brought the people together.
1921, my grandfather and his friend, Mr. Tan, started a company selling French cars, Citroën. My grandfather, Chan Sui Hong, was the first local Chinese to go into the automobile industry. By 55, my uncle and my dad ran the automobile agency. We had the Citroën DS and the ID models. And these cars were 10 years ahead of their time. With a click of a button, you can increase the height of the car, and the shape of the car was way beyond its time. It was the best years of my uncle's life. He took up racing. In 1953, I went to Johor to watch my first race, Johor Grand Prix. The starting was with the Johor seafront, the main road. And that was when my third uncle and my second uncle, they actually raced. Motorsport at that time was mostly a white man's game. The foreigners, they would build their own race cars from normal saloon car, they chop it up. My third uncle, he was very firm that to be very successful in racing, he has to drive a new car, not these home-built cars. So that was why in 1955, he took the agency for Aston Martin. He became very, very famous, Chan Lai Chun, or he's often called as L.C. Chan. Those days, to buy a sports car, the Aston Martin DB3S cost the company 33,000 Singapore. And in 1955, the car arrived. It looked fierce, but it was all painted white. So he competed at the Changi Airport. Those days, Changi Airport was a small airport operated by the British. So they closed the airport for 2 days. They had their first Changi circuit race in 1955. There were about 10 cars. So of course, when the flag dropped, my uncle led from start to finish. He won the race, hands down. He had a new car, powerful car from UK. There was a lady planting a victory kiss with him after he won the race. He looked like a pro, he had everything.
After I got my license, so I was very interested to go and watch the hill climb. You know the twisty road going up? Oh, it's called the Gap. I went to watch the races and I was very interested, so I wanted to take up racing. They call it hill climb. The gap is from this distance to that distance, and they time you. See how fast you can manage to go up. Because you need to know how to corner the car and before you go down the ravine. If you make a mistake, down you go. The corners are very sharp. The Singapore Motor Club, which is a group of Chinese and English. They organize all the races. So you race from start to your top speed within half a mile. See who's the fastest.
The Singapore Motor Club would get the authorities to close the roads. And for 2 days, you get locals who will come up, and then we will sort of climb up the terrain and just watch the race. It's free. It's totally free. You don't have to pay anything. South Buona Vista Road is such a place where it's an uphill climb. You have to show your expertise in your gear changing, your taking of the curves. How skillful are you? And you are timed. I would have been around 10 or 12 years old then. On one side of the road, you have steep cliffs. There were 1 or 2 cases where they misjudged and the car came tumbling down. But I made up my mind as I grew older that one day I will do the Gap Hill Climb, and I did it. My dad actually gave me my first car in 1965. when I was 18 years old, my Austin Healey Frog Eye. So I did do the Gap Hill climb in that car in 1970. It was my dream race. I was very nervous. It's the first time I'm being flagged off. Although my dad said, you will not race because it is very dangerous. I had a girlfriend then. She said, you should do what you like because when you grow older, you can't do it anymore. She accompanied me for the Gap Hill climb and the sprint, and she paid for my helmet and my roll bar. I think her 2 months' pay cost my helmet. So I told myself, oh, I must marry this girl, I think. So today we have been married for 53 years already.
我驾巴士检票员大概是36年左右。以前的巴士不容易驾，全部是没有自动的。那时的一上车你是满身大汗了，因为热嘛，它的机器在前面，也只是一个盖住的。走到下午的时候，你全身汗，又很烧 ，steering 是很重的嘞。现在的一只手可以，以前的那个巴士就古董，哇！要刹车呢，有时候要爬上这样子玩的。以前的乘客有好也有坏啦，有些看你驾车慢，他会骂你，没有打架，只是跟他吵架。他上车的时候，我们的车还不稳嘛，好像震动到他起来，他就呸，对你的脸喷口水，好像2、3个大客抓住我，不然我跟他打架了。有时一个小孩子上车也是一下子控制不住，就是大便哦，噗！我们没有办法了，抽车的时候叫那个技师员叫来洗哦。大人也会落晒吗？上车的时候也是落晒。有时我那个座位全部是粪便的，哇！没有办法啊，你看到也是不敢讲他吗？等他下了之后啊，才叫车长叫他洗哦，没有人敢上去坐。但是很多人上去，为什么一刷全部跑下来？我说什么事？你的车很臭啊！就还没拿来再看，哇，全部是粪便，要水的。有时半路你自然有水就这样冲咯，冲给他洗咯，没有水就叫回去给那个车厂洗咯。
那个是181的路线，在Bukit Panjang，我们赶时间停了，那边就是咖啡店，赶快进去上厕所，我们就要喝咖啡或者吃饭了。等一下回来上，一堆黄金在那个走道中间呢，哇，2次啊，很奇怪，他们不能讲很快就解决掉，没有发现。那时候我们车门都是没有关的嘛，当然臭了，就叫回去洗咯。拿水管来冲洗了。
There was not enough buses running the route. So there were a lot of these people who want to earn a few extra dollars. So they had their private car to pick up passengers. We just drive and then go to the bus stop and toot say, where you want to go? Okay, hop in, 20 cents.
The pirate taxi is a very colorful description for an unlicensed taxi. The pirate taxi driver offered you rides cheaper than the licensed taxis. So pirate taxis operated on the main trunk road, Geylang, Orchard. When you would need a cab and you stood by the roadside, this guy would come along, he'll drive by and he'll honk you, and immediately, you know that that's a pirate taxi. I think pirate taxis had been around ever since the 50s, and more cars were on the road. And then the licensed cabbies who never liked that because they are there to start a business. So there was one incident where there were 3 licensed cabbies beating up one pirate taxi guy. And this pirate taxi's passenger was a lady, and she was screaming in Hokkien, hola, hola. She was just shouting, Michael Pa, Michael Pa. You know, she was screaming hysterically, stop it, stop it.
Those days, what happened was we had a normal taxis flagged down, you know. I think the first one came at the end of 1940, but they were quite expensive to a lot of people. So people started pirate taxis. There'll be certain spots, you stand down there, they come and you pay 20 cents, bring you all the way to Causeway. Because they are outside the law, they're just picking up, stopping anywhere they can stop. Very dangerous. They're taking away the earnings of the normal taxi drivers and from the bus companies also. And they're around for a long time, I think until the mid-60s.
This was a very good service for a lot of office workers to get to their destination, to their offices on time. And there will be 4 of us. We will all pile in, and divided by 4 is still a good fare. For these pirate taxi riders, if they drop one passenger, along the way, they can also pick up the next passenger and the 3rd or 4th. So for him, it makes economical sense. Because the man is in a hurry, he wants to go and get the next passenger, so he gets careless sometimes. So there was an incident whereby a friend told me his grandfather was wearing his jacket, and as he got out of the car, a part of his jacket got caught in the closed door, and he was dragged away for at least 5-10 minutes before the driver was alerted, and he didn't survive.
36年，看到新加坡的转变很好，比较方便，路线比较多。我们的大客选择的路线比较多。现在的四通发达。
今年99歲啊，我仲周圍去㗎。有陣時坐車、坐巴士去小波，即使我喺紅毛橋住，去嗰度觀音廟，你識唔識？去嗰度買嘢啦。1年去100日。
以前的生活比较自由，小孩子的是童年比较好玩呐。现在是要工作要忙碌，
现在童真没有了，现在年轻人都是看手机、电脑。
Those days. In the kampong, there's this gotong royong, kampong spirit. Today, if something happens to a neighbor's house, you don't care 2 hoots. For example, robbing is a business. But those days, like for example, a house on fire, a whole kampong folk would run out, no, with their pails of water and help to put out the fire. Everybody chip in, even the old men. So if we were to wait for the fire engine, I think our whole kampong would burn down. There was a lot of kampong spirit. I really missed that.
We didn't have that much ambition, most of the young people. They were happy to have their monthly salaries, spend them, save up to buy a house, save up to get married, maybe a little bit of travel, but nothing so ambitious. At the same time, there was a lot more of people connection. We used to go to our friend's house, got to know our parents, hello, auntie, and which you don't get these days. I don't know, people are too busy or they feel that their home is not big enough. I'm still friends with my colleagues from the first day we worked together, and we proudly say more than 50 years of friendship. There were fewer opportunities at that time when we were growing up, but I think we all overcame. We stepped up with the modern times. I hope more people get together and do things together have a friendship relationship going on with a true sense of personal relationship.